Josh, it's great to be here with you. And all of our Cyberfest fans, attendees, great to be here with all of you.
And shout out to the Arctic Cybertruck. These two trucks went all the way from right here in the great state of Florida, all the way up through my home country of Canada, through British Columbia, the Yukon Territory, into the Northwest Territories, to the Arctic Ocean, and they took those Cybertrucks there. Pretty exciting stuff, pretty wild to see what that truck can do, really.
Absolutely. And Justin, right there in the back, Bearded Tesla, this is the actual adapter that was used for that track. So this is what made that all possible, is the CCS adapter, because as they got north, they weren't able to use any of the supercharging network.
Correct. So it ran out.
They had to use all CCS chargers, which were somewhat reliable, but the only way that was possible was by using EVject.
Correct. And can you explain to everybody here that doesn't know, why does the EVject come in clutch when you're using Tesla's OEM? So Tesla designed that adapter, that CCS adapter, and they also designed the Cybertruck.
That's right.
But they're uncompatible.
That's right. So underneath here, this is made by Tesla, and it does not fit in any of these Cybertrucks unless you hit it really, really hard. But this bottom corner here hits the fender flare on the Cybertrucks. And so the way this works, and this actually wasn't part of our design, but it is a nice side feature. I have to juggle things.
You're passing me that CCS there. Don't want any injuries.
We don't have body mics or a mic stand. If anybody has a mic stand in the audience, that'd be really helpful right about now, because then I can put the mic here and use both hands.
So here we go. Here we go.
So I'll grab it here.
There we go.
So that gives you about 2 inches of extra length so that you can fit that right through there without hitting the fender flare. And you get two benefits from this. One, you can charge with CCS. And second is you can actually have the breakaway feature, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
But you get kind of a 2-for-1 benefit there. So
definitely. Yeah, there's lots to talk about. You guys have a lot going on. A lot of headlines recently with EVject and some exciting developments too. A lot of emotional ups and downs, really.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So, well, first let's talk about what it does. And again, I'm going to explain things that I'm going to do with my hands. Unless we have any volunteer that want to come hold the mic while I talk right here.
Hey, fine.
Okay. All right. Justin was also cool enough to let me use his mobile charger. So this is the mobile charger that we have here. I don't have my supercharging cable that we bought on eBay with us, but just imagine this. This is a supercharger. It does also work with a home charger, but you simply slide it on the end of the charging wand. You plug it in just like normal into your car, but once it's in the charge port, the light will stay white. The vehicle doesn't actually know it's connected until this very important step of pulling this trigger. At that point, the car latches, holding the trigger on and establishing those communications. At that point, the charger goes blue, and the truck or the car is communicating to the charger. And at any time during that charging session, you hit unlock charge port or simply the lightning bolt on the home screen, and it opens up that circuit. So now the communications are stopped. It stops the charging instantly, and now you can shift into drive without getting out of your car. I see some confused looks in the audience there. The reason this is important is once you've been in a supercharger and you've seen anything sketchy happen outside, you understand exactly why this is necessary. Because if somebody comes up, starts looking at you through the window, starts tapping on the glass, writing things on the window, and maybe keying your car, which is all these stories have actually happened.
Yeah.
There's been a situation in Canada where there were 4 guys in hoodies that had guns. All those things can be avoided if you can stay in your car and simply drive away. And that's not possible right now with any other device besides EVject. And so what we allow you to do is hit stop charging, or just unlock charge port, the lightning bolt, which opens that communication gateway and allows you to shift into drive. At that point, this device splits right here across this seam. This back half stays on the charging wand and protects it as it hits the ground. This front half stays in the vehicle, and you simply send that back to us, and we send you a free replacement.
Wow.
This is what it looks like. This is the part that stays in the car. After you drive away, you can see it's a clean breakaway. There's absolutely zero risk of being shocked or electrocuted here, because you can only go into drive when the charging session is stopped. So if the car and charger are not talking, there is never a charge going through those charging pins. So we simply break the communication, and it allows you to drive on. So this is the back half that would be left behind as the helmet. So it is a single-use device, just like a bike helmet, airbag, fire extinguisher. And part of that was by design. We didn't want people to just break away because they're lazy or because they're worried about getting their hair wet. We want them to break away only in an emergency. And so they really need to think about it.
Yeah.
But if they do that, they simply send it in, you send them a replacement, and everything's better.
You're giving them options.
And hopefully they save their life, right?
Yeah.
Or escape a really bad situation. So we do have other variations here. This is my box of tricks. CCS1.
I have not seen that one. That's cool.
Available for pre-order. This is just the prototype. and CCS2 for all of our Tesla friends in the rest of the world.
Beautiful.
Most people don't know that outside of North America,
That's right.
all Teslas use CCS2. Now, there are some Cybertrucks all around the world. Those all have NACS only, which, by the way, the only way they're charging their trucks is with an EVject. If they're using a supercharger, because they have to use this with an adapter that goes from this to NACS, which doesn't fit either. So they have to use an EVject. So you go from CCS2 to NACS to EVject to charge for it. And
It's like building a cake of adapters.
That's how they charge their Cybertrucks in Dubai right now.
Wow.
With the EVject. So, unless they want to charge at home, then they use a standard mobile charger.
Okay.
With the NACS connector. But this is what comes as a standard. So the Cybertrucks you see throughout the world have been imported.
Okay.
They are distributed by Tesla.
Right.
And so they are shipping with the NACS connector, whereas all the model, sexy models, the S3, X, and Y, all ship with CCS2 built in everywhere besides US, Canada, and Mexico. So I've spent a lot of time talking through this with Tesla and with everybody else. If you have any charging questions about kilowatt ratings, amp ratings, voltage, we have spent 2 years of our life studying everything about ups and downs of Tesla charging. So if you have any questions, happy to talk with you in detail about that as well, in addition to EVject and charging safety.
Absolutely. And for anybody following along on X, there's been kind of a lot of ups and downs as far as to do with thermals and talking about heat and dissipation and safety and sensors and all that sort of thing. Can you talk to any of the kind of interactions with corporate Tesla and EVject?
I can. First of all, I want to make it very clear, we are big fans of Tesla. I'm probably one of the biggest fanboys there is of Teslas. I've loved watching Elon's journey from the early days of PayPal and X, the original X, SpaceX, everything. I've just been a big fan of the charge and innovation that he's leading to make the world a better place and make it interplanetary. Yeah. I hope to see some Cybertrucks on Mars someday. Can we get a round of applause for that?
Let's
someday
go, baby.
Cybertrucks on Mars.
Absolutely.
I believe it's going to happen within the next decade. It's going to happen.
If some red tape just gets out of the guy's way.
Right. That's exactly right. So speaking of red tape, that's right. So big fans. Some people thought, oh, we're trying to disparage Tesla or make them look bad by saying, oh no, you're trapped. And never did we want to do fear mongering. We are not about fear mongering. We're not trying to tell people you're going to die without an EVject. We're just saying if you've ever felt vulnerable, we're giving you an option. It's like saying if you ever felt scared in your house, we're selling door locks. Yeah. We're not saying bad things are going to happen unless you have this, but we want you to have options. And so,
well, I'll just jump in here and add that I'm sure you guys have seen either in person or a picture or a video where a car has driven away with the gas pump, the nozzle hanging out of their tank. This is not something new. All of those tanks, every single gas pump out there has a breakaway built into it. That's their inherent design.
I've actually learned, because we're now working with UL, that's all part of the big story. So UL certifies all breakaway valves and gas pumps. They also certify a lot of charging equipment and electrical equipment. Right. But we're working now directly with the same UL engineers who certified the gas nozzles and the gas breakaway valves. And they want to see the breakaway charging tip to become part of that same standard. Yeah. It should be required. It should be built into the chargers at some point. It's probably going to take a decade. So until then, get yourself options.
And you're solving a problem that's not inherently Tesla. I mean, we obviously EVject is marketed, talking about superchargers and everything like that. But just from what we've seen of these new adapters, these prototypes that are going to be hitting the market shortly, this is an issue or a concern or a potential, I don't want to say threat, but whatever might come up, a life event that affects every type of charging standard. This is not specifically Tesla superchargers. This is a J1772. This is a CCS 1, 2, 3, 10, whatever they come out with later on. For sure. It's right across the board. And obviously NACS is becoming the standard here in North America. We've heard pretty much every automaker, I think, has announced it now. So yeah, that's definitely going to be the focus going forward.
Even automakers who don't make EVs have announced that they're adopting NACS. I love those announcements. Those are always
absolutely.
But going back to the gas pump for just a minute, I learned through this process there's actually two breakaways. The hose, the breakaway that we all see, which shuts off the flow of fuel, but also the tip. Most people don't realize this.
Really?
The tip of a gas pump actually takes a lot of abuse, and if it falls on the ground, someone drives over it, it's going to get pinched and crushed.
On the actual handle,
that tip actually breaks off, and you can slide a new one on. Which also helps protect your car if you're driving with a gas pump, because then it's not putting so much torque on the hose, just the tip. So, if you think about that, we want to make sure that the charging tips have some of that built in long term as well. So these are all things we're trying to push for. Is this should become part of a standard, where it protects the tip, protects the driver, the whole thing is just a better user experience with options.
Yeah,
So,
awesome.
But going back and forth. So we had reached out to Tesla over a year ago and said, hey, this is something we'd love to collaborate with you. We have all the patents. We filed these patents years ago, like 4 years ago,
Okay.
on everything having to do with EVject, an ejection port, a breakaway tip built onto the charging equipment. All those things we have patented. And we wanted to work with all these charging companies. And we started reaching out to everyone. And everyone was just like ghosting us. I was like, no, this
Really?
is ridiculous. Nobody needs this. This is unnecessary. Sorry.
Wow.
We had no intention of actually building a product.
Really?
We were not even going to build a product. We were just going to license the intellectual property and co-develop it with charging companies and with Tesla.
Yeah.
But we didn't hear back from anybody. They didn't take us seriously. And so we were like, well, let's put it on Now You Know, the channel with Zach and Jesse.
Okay.
And see if we get pre-orders. We got thousands of pre-orders.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, this is a problem.
Shout out to Zach and Jesse.
And it
Wow.
actually got a lot of traction. And so all of a sudden we had all these pre-orders, like, oh, I guess we're building this thing. And so it took us, if you pre-ordered in April of 2023, it took us until December of 2023 to ship our first product. And that's because we had to basically re-engineer the whole product for manufacturing. We'd only built prototypes. In fact, again, another shout out to Justin. He was the first to take our prototype from Tesla Takeover last year.
Okay.
And we just had a prototype.
Yeah.
We were showing off at the event. And he's like, I'm going to take one of these. I'm like, that'd be great. We had like 12.
Yeah.
He took one of our 12. And he drove across the country and stopped at how many charging stations? 25. 25 charging stations from San Luis Obispo to here in Florida, going through Tucson, Arizona, 114 degrees, and the thing held up rock solid. Didn't get any issues the whole way. He videotaped every charging session. I gotta tell you, like, I don't think I slept that whole week. He was driving home. I was doing the road trip right alongside him from my phone, watching every charging stop on pins and needles, just like, I hope this prototype holds up.
Wow.
And it did.
It sounds like Justin had more faith in the product than you did.
He did. At that moment, he probably did. And then he got home and he did a breakaway, and it also worked as designed.
Amazing.
So that was amazing. Thank you again, Bearded Tesla, for that.
Yeah.
Huge win.
Make sure you're following Bearded Tesla YouTube, guys. Lots of good stuff there.
And so that was amazing. And so we just kept going. We had to design. If anybody, Elon says this too. He says prototyping is child's play. Mass manufacturing is like trying to land on the surface of Mars.
Yeah.
And it is, I don't know if we are at that level of trying to land on the surface of Mars. Our product's not that complicated. I'm not claiming that. But the difference between prototyping and that is a massive
steep hill.
Design for manufacturing is completely different than design for prototyping. And so we had to basically re-engineer the entire product when we went to mass production. And we wanted to use materials. So this is where we went back to trying to get a hold of Tesla, trying to get a hold of UL, any of the standards groups, and said, hey, what are the specs we need to build this to? What's required?
Yeah.
And nobody had any answers.
Okay.
It was basically the Wild West. We got different answers everywhere. It was ambiguous. It was like, oh, that's being defined. Let me ask you this question. How many DC fast charging devices, so ones you could use, like this one here, made by Tesla.
Right.
This one here, made by Tesla. How many of these? There's also thousands of copycats now.
Correct.
By Amazon. I wouldn't recommend most of them. How many of these are UL listed? UL's they're not a governing body. They're a third party that gives you an endorsement. It's like a good housekeeping seal approval.
Regulator, but kind of
they're
self-appointed.
a third party testing group.
Okay.
Okay, and they say, here's the standards we think you should comply to, but you're not blocked. So you can give me a little bit of a teaser here. You're not blocked from selling something if you're not UL listed.
Okay.
There's no law about that. So how many of the DC fast charging adapters in the world have been UL certified? Maybe hold your fingers up.
Give us a guess.
How many?
You got 1, 0, 0,
0.
0.
Yeah, we've got a binary answer here, ones and zeros.
Wow.
0 was the answer. There is not a single fast charging DC device that's certified. Why? There is not yet a standard.
Wow.
It is impossible to be certified
Why is it impossible?
because there's no standard. It's not defined. It's a proposal of a standard, still being deliberated and debated by all the parties.
Would that be put forward, like, to create the standard? Would that be based from, like, stemming from the manufacturer or from this other third party?
It's basically, so there's a group called Charin, and it's a consortium of all the automakers, charging companies, and they've come together and they said, we're going to define the 2252 UL standard. And that is, right now there's 2251, that is a standard, but that only applies to charging equipment. There's 2252 for charging adapters, and it is not yet a standard.
Wow.
And so, therefore, we had nothing to comply with. We were breaking no regulations when we made the EVject the way we made it.
Right.
We just wanted to make sure it was as safe as possible. So this was our chain of thinking and of engineering. Because of this, and because we also knew Tesla is pushing the limits of their superchargers. Okay, we'll do another trivia question. Are Tesla superchargers 400 volts or 800 volts? Raise your hand if you think they're 400.
You got 3 for 400.
Raise your hand if you think they're 800. They are 400.
Ooh.
Electrify America is 800.
Right.
Again, Wild West. It's crazy out there. The more you look into charging, the more you realize it is not standardized at all. And so because they're at lower volt ratings, they also have to push more amps. Amps create heat.
Right.
So this is why Tesla has to do liquid cooling. This is why Tesla V2s had really thick cables. If you look at their V4s, they have the thick cables again.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of this work to try to keep that high amp flow, from overheating. And again, overheating is somewhat subjective.
Right.
There's not actually a general consensus. So sometimes we've seen Tesla get to some upper limits there. But we were trying to figure this out. And we were like, okay, well, how are we going to know what temperature to turn this off at? And when we asked Tesla, we didn't get an answer. When we looked it up, there's no documentation of how hot it's allowed to get.
Right.
And so we're like, okay, here's our theory. The EVject attached like this, imagine again, this is a fast charger with a much thicker cable. As long as we build this out of more durable product goods, more durable material than Tesla's own equipment, we should be in the clear.
Okay.
Because we will never get more than a couple degrees hotter than their equipment. Because we're basically just a conductor.
Yeah.
We don't create heat internally. We do add a slight amount of resistance that isn't really detected. In fact, Tesla can't detect whether or not the EVject's connected. Secret.
Wow.
They can't know. It's because there's zero resistance that's measurable.
That I had not heard, so that's breaking news to me.
Yeah. However, at crazy high amps, you do create a certain amount. Basically, as things start to heat up, resistance is created.
Okay.
So at room temperature, there's zero resistance that you can detect with any multimeter. But once it heats up, there's actually some resistance created, and that's normal for any adapter. But the problem is that's a very wide envelope for the amount of heat ranges you could potentially do with them. So we just thought, let's build this more durable than the actual Tesla equipment, and make sure that it also benefits from cooling, which the supercharger V3s have liquid cooling, and then the car also has a bus bar, and the conductors on the car side or the truck side help it cool as well. So we're sitting right between two cooling mechanisms, and we figured, okay, we'll stay cool because we're sitting between two cooling devices, and that's true. And so we've never experienced an EVject that got hot.
Okay.
I've never touched an EVject that was actually hotter than a charging wand. However, as we were getting in the press, and as Justin kept doing such a great job spreading the word, Tesla heard about us. And guess who our biggest customer is still to date? Tesla.
Justin. Oh.
Tesla. Tesla ordered 20 units.
Wow.
The term apart.
There you go. Wow.
So they ordered 20 units from us, and they put them through the paces, and they sent it out to a third-party test, and they turned off all the cooling, and they didn't connect it to an actual vehicle. They just put a bus bar connecting the two hot terminals on the inside of the charge port, so there's no car in the equation.
Okay.
And they detected the temperature of the EVject. They did not monitor the temperature of their own equipment, and they just cranked it for 90 minutes.
Okay.
And guess what happened?
We heat it up.
Our device got hot, but guess what else happened?
What?
And I can say this is not disparaging.
Okay.
It's in Tesla's
Their
endorsed
own
test.
thing.
So you can find it on our website. There's a link to it. Tesla commissioned this test. The Tesla charging equipment melted. And in the report it says, and the EVject was unaffected.
Wow.
Again, I'm not disparaging.
Right.
I'm not saying anything that is not public record because
And
the
that's
test is public record.
to do with the higher tolerance material that you guys
Right.
utilized versus the material they were utilizing in their handle.
And if you have no cooling in the loop, and
Right.
you just crank something up at max amps for as long as you want,
Yeah.
anything's going to get hot.
Right.
That's like just turning your stove up and saying, oh my gosh, my pot got hot. Like,
And this is not to knock Tesla, because
Not at all.
obviously
We love
they've
Tesla.
designed their handle with the cooling in mind.
and that's where we
If the
wanted
cooling
to.
doesn't work,
Right.
it's not going to run the charger.
Exactly.
So there's nothing to be.
So they just said, well, we have bigger and bigger batteries coming, faster and faster chargers. So if that's going to happen, we want to make sure that the devices you're selling today don't create a situation where maybe at some point they aren't compatible with future products. You need to add a thermal sensor.
Okay.
And so they can't force that though. So again, back to there's no regulation. They filed a cease and desist originally and said, we can't mention anything Tesla, which there's no mention on our website of Tesla. It just says EV, safest way to charge your EV. We don't say Tesla anywhere on our website.
Right.
Except when we're disclosing what models it works with, which is fair use. And we have really good attorneys that help us navigate all this. But then they insisted that we had to stop selling. And they said, well, we'll stop selling if we know there's a path to start selling again.
Yeah.
And there was not a lot of positive back and forth. So they filed a lawsuit against us. And we went back and said, hey, we want to be good partners. We want to comply. Just tell us what we need to do. And it was actually all the community that rallied and said, we love EVject. Please don't shut them down.
Oh, yeah.
Tesla Boomer Mama tweeted my test results when I said, hey, this is a little unfair of a test because you just maxed out this with no cooling, and of course it got hot. That's obvious. Their same adapter would also get hot in this exact same situation if you turned off all cooling precautions.
No, the Tesla community came out really strong. Shout out to Alexandria and so many of the community members that came out and were very, very vocal. Big accounts too that stood up and spoke out for your product in defense of it. And there wasn't any ill intent from both sides.
Not
it was just to say, hey guys, let's talk, let's develop this product so that both sides are satisfied and we can have a safe product because it does solve a concern.
Absolutely. And if I had two hands, I'll try to do it here. Round of applause for the Tesla community.
Absolutely, guys. It's all you guys out there. Absolutely.
Thank you for all the support.
Yeah.
For Bearded Tesla, for Tesla Boomer Mama, for Kim Java, all of them highlighted the need for this safety device. And they got Elon's attention.
Yeah.
And he said, we'll investigate. And as in, he would investigate.
Yeah.
And the very next week, I got a DM from their head of global supercharging. He said, let's do this together. Tesla's here to be helpful. My wife and I were actually in a Cybertruck.
Yeah.
She was driving. I was riding shotgun. We were going up the mountains. And we just stopped at a brand new V4 supercharger in Park City. I opened up my phone, and there's that message. And she heard me shout for joy. Because I was like, that's the moment I wanted all this time.
Fantastic.
And so then we've been collaborating since then. And I said, and again, not an official partnership. I can't say that. We're not officially partnered, but they've been very helpful.
Good.
They've been supportive. They still won't give us an exact spec.
Right.
But they do tell us it has to pass this or it has to do that. And so we're trying to hit those, but it's not quite like a spec. We have to basically send them a new unit and they say, okay, pass, fail.
Okay.
But they've been helpful. And that's the reason they can't give us a spec is because they're not a governing body. They can't tell us what the industry actually requires. They can just tell us what their cars require.
Yeah.
And so we've tried to be very supportive and complimentary that way. And we just pushed back and said, look, we can go down this path with you, but if we're under an active lawsuit, like we can't keep having conversations. So we need to drop the lawsuit. What do we need to do to get the lawsuit dropped? And they said, hey, if you offer a voluntary recall, which means all of you who have the device can choose if you want to send it back. If you choose to send it back, we will send you a free replacement with a thermal sensor.
So the new version.
Yeah, functionality is exactly the same, but it has a device in there, a circuit that basically will shut off if it were to get too hot, which we've never experienced.
Yeah.
In fact, the biggest problem we're having right now is we have a Cybertruck back in Utah where we developed this, and our lead engineer, Eric Vega, by the way, Eric Vega, EV, his initials are EV. You don't get much.
How did his parents know?
Yeah, must have known, yeah. And so the inventor, co-inventor with me of the EVject is Eric Vega, which I love that trivia point. We're trying to create a situation where the device gets so hot that it turns off and we can't do it.
Wow.
So we have to do it in the labs and recreate situations, but we do not have a real world situation yet where the device gets hot enough that it actually tripped the thermal sensor. So I don't think you'll see any behavior change if everything goes well with the new device. So
that tells
you decide,
me,
no pressure to change it or not. It's up to you if you want to send it back.
I was just going to say that tells me that your device is going to be more than safe for even commercial use. So we do a lot of towing with our EV, and so again, just repeated supercharging day in and day out, not going to be an issue for it.
Yeah. So I think we probably got the most supercharging sessions in a day because we're pulling trailers now. Again, Bearded Tesla hauled. I have some photos there. It's kind of hard to see screen, but I have a photo there of our Cybertruck pulling his Cybertruck from Utah to Florida, which is a pretty epic moment. It was the first time a Cybertruck towed a Cybertruck, and he didn't just tow it like around the block. He towed it across the country. And therefore, he was charging every 100 miles with an EVject.
Wow.
And there was one time where it did get hot, and that was when Tesla was purposely pushing their own limits and testing their own boundaries. And we've never been able to recreate that. They've updated charging curves like that. We can't ever recreate that same situation. And Teslatino, Bearded Tesla, they just did their trip to the Arctic. Did you guys ever have a situation where the EVject felt hot? Like, hotter than the charging equipment?
It was the Arctic.
Oh, it was the Arctic, yes. But I've heard from both Bearded Tesla and Teslatino that the trip would not have been possible without the EVject because they couldn't have
100%.
used their CCS1 adapter without, and Not to mention, there's grizzly bears in Alaska. Like, I don't want to be up in the North, Arctic area without a way to drive away if I had to.
Absolutely. You're going into completely unknown areas. I mean, I'll give you one example. One of the chargers that I saw in a video is literally a natural gas generator inside of a shipping container, literally in the wilderness in somewhere, in some gravel lot. I mean, who knows what? You could have bears coming out of the woods. I mean, who knows what could be happening? Or even people. You never know. Like in a remote area, come out and...
No people. Yeah.
You never know. You
There's
never
Bigfoot.
know.
There's Bigfoot up there.
Yeah, you could have a Yeti just coming up
So-
to the truck.
And the hard thing is, like, we have thousands of stories from our customers. We don't post them because we don't want to seem like we're fear-mongering, but we have some crazy stories.
Yeah.
There was a lady who was in her car watching it get keyed on every panel of her car. They went around with a rock and keyed every panel. She's sitting in the car, and not just like paint damage, but like body damage, like deforming the body. And therefore, you have to do like plaster and grinding and everything. And it was like $10,000 worth of body damage. She filed a claim with their insurance company and said, "We're not going to pay this because you were in the car when it was happening. You were an accomplice.
Oh, come on.
You were compliant to
Wow.
this. Why were you letting this happen?" And she said, "Oh, I couldn't drive away." Like, no, you don't get it. We could have paid for a new charger for a lot less than $10,000. You should have driven away and broken the cable. She's like, "You can't drive away."
Yeah.
And she had to educate the insurance company that she could not drive away. Physically, there was no option for her to drive away. She would have had to get out and confront the strange man with a rock, who was probably high, and say, "Hey, I'm going to unplug now. Leave me alone." Just crazy situations.
100%. And things are replaceable. People aren't.
100%. People, human safety is number one priority.
Absolutely.
Always. And we kind of think of this like airbags. When I first saw airbags, I was in the LA Auto Show a long time ago. I grew up in LA. And I saw airbags, and everyone there was like, "These are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Whoever needs those things?" And it was totally the laughing stock of the auto show.
Yeah.
And now it's required.
And who would buy a car without an airbag?
Right.
Nobody.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, what I'm thinking of as you're speaking is our life jackets.
Yeah.
You're not going to advertise every time somebody doesn't know how to swim, but boy, you're going to make sure they got a life jacket in the boat.
That's right. I know I went pretty technical there, but I know you guys are like the most loyal Tesla fans here. We're the early adopters with Cybertrucks, and frankly, all this drama affects us with Cybertrucks more than anybody. So,
Well, we appreciate being so candid with the community, just to
Absolutely.
let us kind of all know sort of what happened. So, there seems to be a lot of like kind of running of the tweets, as it were, on X. Oh, well, they did this and this and that, and people hear lawsuit, and it's just so great to just get some clarity and some closure to kind of all the events, and just following kind of the adventure of what happened with the company and the development of this great product. So, well, thank you very much. We're excited to see where the story goes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're just getting started.
There we go. Thanks, guys.